Just turn off your cell phone, and I think that's all. Either use vibrate or silent.
Thank you, Krista. So my presentation is going to be on paperless tenure and promotion process, and the Django Unleashed is sort of a play on the movie title that just came out this summer. But Django is actually a web framework. We'll discuss that as we go along. So the outline of the presentation is I'm going to talk about our tenure and promotion process at Carleton. The motivation of why we want to go paperless is obvious, I guess. Humble beginnings of how we got started, a little bit about Django, and then how we evolved the tenure and promotion process, and some thoughts and future developments. So tenure is probably the single most important decision the university has to make. And it represents a long-term and significant financial commitment. And promotion is a extension of that, where it provides recognition of career achievements in teaching, research, and service. So currently, Carleton has a distinct tenure and promotion process. The tenure process follows a different flow than the promotion process. And so recently, after around 2010, the university had gone on a process of consulting and trying to identify how it should improve the tenure and promotion process. So these changes are coming under the new collective agreement, which comes into effect now, I believe. And so the challenge is that they're going to run both the old and new processes in parallel. So that means a faculty member that was hired under previous to this new process can choose which process he wants to be evaluated under, and any new faculty that gets hired will be evaluated under the new process. So these are the two processes that when for tenure there's a departmental committee that meets. It provides its recommendations to the faculty tenure committee, and then it makes the recommendations to the president. And then, based on the decision, if there's an appeal, then it goes to the Senate Tenure Appeals Committee, and then whatever decisions made by that committee goes back to the president. That's final. And then, but if it's just if there's no appeal, then whatever, basically the recommendation that goes to the president is the final decision for tenure. Now, for promotion, there again we have a departmental promotion committee, a faculty committee, then we have a university promotion committee, and we also have a faculty. Sorry, it goes to the president, and then again, if there's I forgot my Y's and N's. So if there's an appeal, then it goes to what is the promotions appeals committee. It's also called the university de novo, and then its decision goes to the board of governors. But if the president, if there's an appeal, then no, if there is appeal, then it goes to promotions committee and goes back to the UPC for evaluation, and then it goes back and then goes to the board of governors. But if there's no appeal, then it goes directly to the board of governors. So that whatever the decision is made by the PAC is actually final. So in most instances, the departmental committees are different. So it depends on faculty. Some faculties have a common departmental promotion committees, some don't. And some faculties have and members of each faculty promotion committee includes a chair of each department and also a faculty member, similarly here. And then all the faculty chairs are represented in, a dean and some faculty members are represented in the university promotion committee. So back the wrong way. So faculty tenure is actually known as tenure. Promotional ranks we have our associate professor, full professor. We also have honorary promotion ranks, which actually goes through the same process, which is a chancellor's professor and distinguished research professor. Instructors are for tenure, for what equivalent of tenure for instructor is called confirmation, and promotional ranks are from instructor level 1 to instructor level 2 and to instructor level 3. So this is the new joint tenure and promotion process, and it's basically now we have common committees, and so this is actually planning to go into effect in the fall, and so we have these common committees for this is actually tenure and promotion, the departmental, faculty, university, and then similar as we saw in the flow, but we now actually have an external panel, and we also have an arbitrator. So exactly how we're going to implement this, we're going to be having discussions about this summer. So a typical timeline for a tenure and promotion process, and I've only illustrated here just for faculty. So it starts off before September. The candidates start preparing their dossiers, and by sometime in by beginning of October, the candidates are supposed to submit their tenure and promotion documents to the departments, and then by that same time, the departments should have established their tenure and promotion committees, and so it goes on till the end of October, and when the candidates actually submits their tenure and promotion dossiers to the faculty. So the current collective agreement says that they actually have to submit their tenure documents by this date. They have up until a little longer to submit their promotion documents, but we've asked for those promotion documents by the end of October, because in most instances, most people submit similar documents for both tenure and promotion. And so, as you see, the process goes on until June, roughly the end of June, when the letters are sent from the president based on decisions that have been made. So I won't go through the whole timeline, but there are a lot of decisions that have to be made, and this is typically the workflow. So there's a large amounts of paper that actually previously has been generated. So the candidate generates, in most instances, they're asked to prepare copies of their dossiers in paper in the past to the department. The department then of all their candidates will then submit, when they submit 6 copies to the faculty. And the faculty similarly submits 6 copies to the university promotion committees. And then there's also the issue of going out to external referees, and copies have to be made to be sent to the referees because it was always previously done as paper. And so the concern there was that there was only a limited number of paper copies that were circulated, and so that they will all be retrieved at the end of the day and destroyed. And so then these copies a copy will make it to the president, and then the president has other documents like letters that will go to the Senate Tenure Appeals Committee, and also to the UPC de novo, and also subsequently the Board of Governors. So in some faculties, like in faculty arts, they produce actually a bound tenure and promotion document for each candidate, and they make multiple copies. And so the issue for them was, in the past, from what I understand, was that partway people are allowed to add addendums to their TMP process, so they have to rebuild these documents along the way. So it became very paper intensive. So also additionally, we also have an awards process, and within the faculty science, we have the faculty teaching awards, which is only done at the faculty level, where people actually submit their application with supporting documents for the teaching awards. We also have a teaching achievement awards, the research achievement awards, which are run by respectively the VP academic and the VP research, and the contract instructors teaching awards, also VP academic, and the professional achievement awards from VP academic. So these also required a lot of paper application submissions to be made and submitted, and to the evaluation committees. So a typical TPA or tenure promotion awards dossier would include a cover letter, a CV, supporting documents, a departmental recommendation letter, teaching evaluations, addenda, which are probably made before the faculty committee meets and also before the university committee meets, the referee letters that come from the external evaluation, faculty recommendations, the appeals documents, and if this candidate also happens to be submitting for awards, there's also the awards documents or submissions. So as you see, this process is quite paper intensive. So there was desire to move to a paperless process. And from my own perspective, a selfish motivation was the opportunity to develop with a web framework. So this all originated in the faculty of science. Our former dean, who actually managed the tenure and promotion process by himself, managed the administrative staff, and his executive assistants did not partake in the whole process, so he managed it himself with the departments. And so when we received our new dean, he came on and he said, oh, what am I supposed to do with this? He didn't know the process, and so he turned to the administrative assistants and said, what do I do? And so then they scrambled to try to figure out what's going on, and then he found out it was all paper, and then he said, oh, well, we really need to get rid of the paper. So we started this process by actually looking at it for the faculty tenure and promotion process. So this was only at the faculty level. So we requested that the candidate submits documents electronically, and the tenure and promotion committee could view it electronically. So the question became, how do we implement this? So initial thoughts on development was that it should be web-based. We needed to be agile. We should use an MVC framework. We preferred Python. And one of the assumptions that, based on our naive view of the process, because I sat down with the administrative officer for the faculty and other people, the administrative staff, and we were poring over the collective agreement. And one of the issues that we discovered was, oh, well, we have to be concerned about the security of the documents. So although we decided that we're going to ask people to submit PDFs, but how do we prevent people from printing it? And so one of the issues became, well, how do we do this? So the choice that I made was actually to convert them all to Flash movie. So if they were actually to display the Flash movie, they'll have to screen capture every page in order to print it. So it became very difficult to print. So that was the assumption that when I first thought of doing this, that's the approach I would take. So with regards to frameworks, as we heard in previous talks yesterday, people were talking about Ruby and Rails with the LMS. As the previous presentation, we heard about pylons. There's also turbo gears, Django, and Web to Pi. So Ruby and Rails obviously is a Ruby-based web framework, and these are all Python-based. So for those not familiar with Django is a high-level Python web framework. It encourages rapid development and clean and pragmatic design, and similar frameworks try to achieve the same objectives, similarly as previous presentation talked about pylons. It allows for building high-performing and elegant web applications quickly. And one of the principles that it adheres to is the DRY principle: do not repeat yourself as much as possible. So Django is not named after the movie. It's actually named after a jazz musician called Django Reinhardt. So the features of Django are, it has basic modules, supports classes, tools to quickly develop and deploy web apps. It has an object relational mapper, uses Python syntax to interface to a database, so there's no real need to learn SQL or data definition languages. Provides a powerful and extensible framework which permits HTML, XML, and other documents to be converted to an express presentation. And it separates the design, content, and the Python code. And it also beautifies your URLs so that you don't have cruft laden URLs, not something like this. So Django includes an automatic emit interface to administer and manage the data models. It has a built-in authentication and access control components, supports multiple languages, robust cache system, and supports upstream caches like Squid. Many contributed components. It's extensible and as a built-in lightweight development server, so you can actually test on let's say on your local development environment without actually deploying to a web server. So a typical Django app in a nutshell has a concept of a project, and within the projects you can have multiple apps. So you have a global setting of settings for the project, which is inherited by the apps, and then a URL for the whole project. So this gives it a namespace, and then within the apps you have a model, usually forms, admin interface, views, URLs, and the templates on how you want to display your data. So here's an example of what the model would look like. So this is a model for a faculty tenure candidate. So we want to capture the last name, first name, phone, faculty. So you wondered why we have faculty 1 and faculty 2 in department 1 and 2. The issue that we came across was some of the faculty are cross-appointed. So when we were developing solely for the faculty of science, that was never an issue. So we had faculty that were appointed, let's say in the Department of Neurosciences as part of faculty of science, but they're also cross-appointed to the faculty of arts and social sciences, which in the Department of Psychology. So these are gotchas that we didn't originally plan for. So here's the simple form for the candidate view, is that the candidate just needs to upload a simple form, is presented with simple form to upload 2 documents. The first document is the cover letter and CV, and the second document is supporting documents. So the supporting documents are documents like their publications.
Excuse the interruption, but we have a special guest who just wants to come say hi to all the candidate folks.
Hey, where's the band? All right. Well, good night. I just want to say hello. It's wonderful to be here in Ottawa. It's been a long time. My goodness. Anyway, you're good looking crowd and everything. You're studying something really studious, man. What is that? I used to study moving in cars. That was it, you know. You want to have a good look? Honey, what are you doing? Look at me, man. That's it, man. Okay, I feel like Justin Bieber anyway. So, listen. Have a good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and take care of yourself. We'll meet again. Adios. So, God bless.
So I should stop now, right? Oh well. So this is the admin interface. So for example, let's say if we want to look at the data model for the tenure candidate, so we can display the fields that we want to show, and then this actually displays it in the interface. I'll show you that later, and then you could have filter functions, which is quite powerful. So you can actually do some really quick analysis of the data that you have, and then you have search skills that you can. So basically, you would register the admin interface for the faculty tenure candidate object. So the views look like something like this, and it took a while to find a small snapshot that I could actually fit in the screen size. So this is the view that for uploading a faculty promotion dossier. So basically a form, if it's unbound, would render to response to load a template. So this basically loads the form and asks for the uploading of the actual document. But if once the candidate enter all the data, then the form is now validated, and so now contains data. So we can now actually start storing the actual document, and also start recording exactly where it's stored and when it's submitted. And then we also redirect to another form, another page. Sorry. So the template language looks like this. As you see, it looks like just HTML, but you'll see things like variables here. So so as part of these the template, the interface between the view and the template, it actually passes arguments. For example, here, the username becomes a variable that is actually used by the template. So it can now be to have a very dynamic template with all the data. For example, the URL, and in other instances, there's a nice template language that's supported by Django that you can actually do things programmatically within the template. So the URLs beautify specifies the beautification of the URLs. And so on this side, you see a regular expression. And then this is the actual view that gets called, as we saw earlier, that we saw the upload faculty promotion dossier view. So there's some question about MVC versus MTV. So in an MVC framework, the model actually contains the data. The view is actually presentation of the data, and the controller is intelligence and interface, that interface between the model and the view. But there's some debate about whether Django actually is an MVC, but in essence, it's just a naming convention. I guess it gets confusing because Django calls the controller the view, and the template is actually called. The template should actually be the view, and the controller should actually be the view. The controller should actually be what Django calls the view, and the template should be actually what Django calls. Oh, I'm getting myself confused. So the template is actually the view, and the controller is actually the view in Django. So the view actually controls the control logic, and the template defines the view being presented. So, oh well, I'm getting confused as well. So the data model that we use is these are the typical data objects that we create for the tenure and promotion process. So we have a concept which is included in Django of a user, And we also have a tenure candidate, a promotion candidate, instructor confirmation candidate, instructor promotion candidate. And so these are actually what's in the data model for the first iteration of the online tenure and promotion process. So the candidate view basically is the upload form. We submit the TMP document. And originally we had a cover letter, CV, and supporting documents. Subsequently, after running through it for a year or so, the Provost's office suggested reducing this to 2 documents. So it's just a cover letter and a CV is one. I sort of have a typo error here, and the supporting documents. So typically we request that candidates submit their tenure and promotion dossiers by October 31st. But just like students, they typically miss deadlines. So the submissions go sometimes well into October. So from the reviewer's view, from the tenure and promotion review committee's perspective, they basically get presented a simple list of candidates with links to the dossier documents. So reviewers typically use iPads at the meeting, and so they prefer not to have to navigate so much within the page, so simple is good. And going back to what I said earlier with regards to Flash, my first instincts then were to try to secure the documents, and by converting PDFs to a Flash movie. That doesn't play very well on iPads and other mobile devices. And so in the first year that we actually ran this, there was some fairly good responses from the faculty review committee, so that they made the recommendation that they actually be able to view the documents as part of as members of the UPC. So we extended this view for the faculty science only dossiers to the University Promotions Committee. And so the role of viewers is not always straightforward. And because some reviewers could be on a tenure committee and also a promotion committee, but they are also could be a candidate. So for example, if someone's a candidate for tenure, but they're also on the promotion committee, they should only be able to see the promotion documents, but not the tenure documents. So we need a finer grain control of what documents reviewers can view. So let me go and this is what the candidates, for example, are. Sorry, let me get back to the right one. Yeah, so this is, for example, a candidate who is actually a tenure promotion candidate, a promotion candidate. So basically, once he logs in, which is myself as a test case in this example, it'll identify whether they're a tenure or promotion candidate. In this case, I'm just a promotion candidate, and I get prompted for just a cover letter and curriculum vitae and supporting documents, and I can upload. So let's see, let's choose. I'll do that. I'll do this because it's faster. Oh, sorry. I think I disabled. Okay, sorry. There's a problem there. But anyway, so once they upload, they actually, in the first instance I did this, I did actually thank them, and I didn't present a view which allowed them to review the documents. So one of the biggest complaints that we had the first year we did this was that people wanted to make sure that they uploaded the correct documents. And so subsequently we basically presented them a view with the documents they uploaded, and they can navigate back and forth between whether they uploaded tenure or promotion documents. So from a review perspective, so for example, this is looking at the University Promotion Committee, for example, would see, I'm sort of hopping between, this is subsequently when we now are running for the whole university. The University Promotion Committee will see candidates in promotion for the Faculty of Arts and Social Science, for all the faculties. And so what's interesting here is that although we have 5 faculties, they're not all the same. And we have an exception in the Sprott School of Business, which is actually a faculty. They don't actually have departments, so they don't have a departmental committee. And so the structure of the documents are slightly different for that faculty than the other four. And one of the things that we found is that faculty, the administrators, because they also have to still, despite the fact that we're going online for most of this for the whole university at this stage, the university actually still requires one hard copy of everything. So now that we have everything online, so we have to generate these zip files of all the documents. So it's easier for them, rather than click through every document to download, is to create a zip file for them to actually download them en masse. So as I mentioned earlier, we also have the research, the awards process. And let me just go. Okay, so what happens, I forgot to turn these things back on because I disable some of these once the process is ended. So for example, this is the review process. So that was the submission process for the candidates. So the URL for the candidate submit was this one. But if you're on the review committee for the Research Achievement Awards, the URL is this. And so you can see that there's from the different faculties, and then also there's a document of recommendation from the particular faculties. So anyway, I'll hop back to this. So as I mentioned earlier, I was concerned about the security of the dossiers. And so as it turned out, people weren't too concerned about that. So we just basically now just allow simple PDFs. What we are concerned about is actually the letter of recommendations from the external examiners. So we have to make sure that those aren't as exposed as the other documents. So as I mentioned earlier, the candidates also want to know right away whether they uploaded the right version of their documents. So I had a wrong assumption that once people submit, it just goes in the black hole and they should be fine with it. That's not the case. What we also found is that the supporting documents tend to be quite large. So for some faculty in biology, for example, we were seeing supporting documents of over 300 pages. And so they included huge amounts of pictures, and some people even asked whether we supported multimedia files, audio recordings of their field work and movies and things like that. So we decided not to support this at that time, but we are actually now seeing still large PDFs. And so we're suggesting people compress them or not submit their full articles and things like that. So, because frankly, most people don't bother reading everything. So one of the issues we also came along was that because we requested only initially 3 documents and subsequently 2, that we had to instruct candidates how to create and merge PDF documents. And so, as you saw in the example when I showed the demo, we actually have instructions on how to do that. And also, there are PDF compatibility issues with certain viewers. So some people create in engineering, for example, now, and in science, they create theirs using PDF LaTeX, and some viewers cannot actually see those documents properly. When we were running this just for the Faculty of Science, we would have a smaller group of candidates, so it was easier to educate. And reviewers preferred less documents. So from a Django perspective, Django was very, very enjoyable to use. There's lots to figure out. It's fairly agile. You make quick changes. The logic's in the view. And in some instances, when you can't really go in and change the logic in the view, you can actually do quick fixes directly in the template. So that basically, it doesn't really require actually restarting the whole Django process that you deployed. You can actually do the quick fixes directly in the template. So denormalization is also good. So in some instances, rather than creating complex objects or data models, it's better to repeat the data in separate objects or data entities, because it's quicker for queries, and it's quicker for because you don't really want to build really complex queries. So you can actually do a quicker query by replicating that data in other objects. So I'll show you the admin interface. So this is you actually get this built in with the Django. So this is actually the live P&A site. So we have several apps. So you'll see these things demarked as in blue. These are actually the various apps. So you can develop things in a quite modular fashion. So the first thing we ever actually developed was the T&P app. So basically that involved creating those objects I described earlier, and we also maintain states, for example. We can say when we can actually turn this off. So actually I have it on. So let's go back. So for example, we keep track of who all the tenure candidates are. So these are for all across the whole university. So as I mentioned earlier, there's certain filter functions. So you can actually go quickly and how many of these are from the faculty from arts and social sciences. There's 12, and how many of these are actually cross-appointed. So there's none. So you can actually build these functions yourself, and you can, for example, narrow down and so you can just find exactly which filters you want to use. And this is quite useful if you want to get quick answers to some questions about how many people are, let's say, from the Department of English are actually a tenure candidate, for example. So one of the things that we actually have extended to is, as I mentioned, is actually having the awards and also with the external referees. So now, rather than sending out letters and also the documents to each of the referees, we now actually send them the URLs to actually review. And so the instructors, the external referees, we have a total that's here of last year of 145. So you'll see that there are multiple referees for each candidate, and these are the names of the referees. And we can actually turn on when referees can actually view documents. So I've left them on, but we can turn it off, for example. And then also because in the paper form we actually sent basically a letter where they acknowledge that they're agreeing to be a referee and keeping all the information confidential. We're no longer doing that. So we now basically present a form where they acknowledge by agreeing to proceed with this process. So here you'll see that there's 122 of the external referees have accepted the acknowledgements that they would agree to be a referee. So the discrepancy you see between the 122 and 145 is at the beginning of the process when the administrators in each faculty send out the letters. It's based on recommendations from the department and recommendations from the candidates that they send out the letters to ask. So they give me all the names in advance. So some people will turn them down. So that's why you see the discrepancy between 145 and 122 here. So that's the admin interface. Get back here. So as I mentioned, we now have an acknowledgement undertaking. So that's done electronically now for both reviewers and the university at the university, and also for the external examiners. We've added the other faculties. So over time, over the course of two to 3 years, we now actually this past year ran for the whole university through the system, and we've also added, as mentioned, the university award processes. And we've added external referees to the promotion process. So what's interesting enough, a year ago when faculty arts and social sciences first joined this process, we had departments wanting to join this process. And so they said, we want to do it online. And so the department that wanted to join was the Department of French. They only had one candidate. So we ran it through for them. But so the only faculty that, because the fact that our social science is so large and they have the most departments, most of the departments actually wanted to run through the departmental process. So of all the faculties, I think maybe 10 departments ran through this in the departmental level this year through this process. So, but the issue that we have now is because we asked for a October 31st deadline submission. Some of the documents, because the tenure committees have to meet before October 31st, the documents may not be online for all the candidates. So we need to look at addressing how to back this up. And so, yeah, so as I mentioned, this past year, all the faculties went through this process. So part of the challenge is that we have is identifying the TNP candidates. And because as the previous presentation showed, there was no the university doesn't have a very good process of identifying when a faculty member is eligible for promotion and tenure. And so typically when a faculty, it should be X number of years after they're hired, they're eligible, and then for promotion, I think it's X number of years after they receive their PhD, I believe. And so what happens is a lot of people, when they're eligible, they may hold off for a year or two, and so then they lose track of when they should actually submit for tenure for promotion, for example. So we need a better system of identifying it, and so my understanding is the university is working on that. There's varying degrees of expertise amongst the administrators and the faculty with regards to the tenure and promotion process. In one faculty, we had an experienced administrator who's been doing this for the last 25 years. So this is the way it's done, no questions. So you can't deter from that. Then we have other administrators who were recently hired in some faculties and they had no clue what was going on. So they were in the process of learning. And so trying to get information from these administrators, exactly what the departmental processes are, was a bit of a challenge. So the different faculties have different policies. For example, one of the issues that we've had is in some faculties, the teaching evaluations are actually being collected by the actual candidate themselves and including the supporting documents. So, but then the question becomes is who verifies the teaching evaluations. So in some departments, they're actually done as part of the departmental recommendations, and it's actually submitted as part of the departmental recommendation letters for the candidate. The issue with that becomes, once we now move towards moving those documents to the external referees, we can't give the external referees the departmental recommendation, but we can give them the teaching evaluations to look at. So now the question becomes, we have to break up the documents, and we really don't want to do that. So the other issue we have is that the addendums. And because of the process, as we saw in the timeline, takes such a long time, there's two opportunities during the course of a year when a candidate can actually submit addendums to their dossiers. And so the question becomes, do we allow the candidates to actually do it? Because part of the collective agreement, they cannot modify the original documents that they were evaluated upon. So we now have to have addendum documents. And so there's opportunity to do that twice in a year. And so we now have to create objects or data models for these two addendum documents. So as I've alluded to, users can have many roles. So a user could be a candidate while also be on a committee. They can also be a faculty teaching award candidate. They could also be a research achievement award candidate. So part of most of the logic that's in this system is actually keeping track of what role the person has at a particular time in a particular time frame, so they actually get the proper view. So, for example, in the beginning of September or October, their role, if they're actually a candidate, the view that they actually see will be that of a candidate in submitting documents. But once the committees roll along, if they're also now a committee member for, let's say they're a promotion candidate, but they could also be a committee member for a tenure committee, then their roles will change. And so a lot of the logic that's intelligence here is actually keeping track of what roles people have. Oh, interesting. So part of the challenge also is learning more about the processes as different exceptions occur, because as I mentioned earlier, we have people are cross-appointed. We have people that are being submitted as external referees from different departments with similar names, but you don't know whether they're the same person or not, because they don't identify to me exactly where they're from. They just give me the names and I just create the account information for them. So the complexities are the Sprott School of Business I mentioned earlier. They basically are a single department faculty. And so they don't have a departmental recommendation. So they basically have a different data model than the other faculties. As mentioned, cross-appointed faculties. And then the other challenge is that in these cases, a faculty member can choose to have an interfaculty subcommittee. So that means we have to create another committee type for them. Same referee for different candidates I mentioned earlier. We also have these issues where, because these are honorary promotion for candidates, these tend to be last minute, just before the UPC committee meets. And then we have as I shown earlier, is that we now have a unified T&P process, and we also have the existing old process, which we must run in parallel. And as I mentioned earlier, I mentioned just briefly earlier, was the role complexity. So these are the different roles. Oh, sorry, these are the roles that people can have. As I mentioned earlier, tenure. I just won't go through them. So a user can have many of these roles at different times. So some numbers. In this system this year, we had 506 users, 145 external referees, 22 UPC members, 141 faculty promotion committee members, 147 departmental tenure and promotion committee members. So this is only within the faculty of arts and social sciences. So this is not including all the other faculties. And one of the things I wanted to do was actually generate an email comparison of last year to this year. So last year I had to deal with a lot of emails. This year the number reduced greatly. And the catch of that is that up until this year, this system is, for SSL, I use self-signed certificates. This year I actually purchased a certificate. So if you use self-signed certificates, your browser will tell you that, oh, I don't recognize this. It's not in the browser as a recognized authority. So that's greatly reduced the amount of mails that I received complaints this year. So if anyone's familiar with Python, there's this thing called Zen of Python. If the implementation is hard to explain, it's a bad idea. If the implementation is easy to explain, that may be a good idea. So hopefully this is a good idea. So some thoughts about the Django. I haven't really talked about deployment. You can have challenges for large-scale apps. This tenure promotion app is still fairly small. The database I actually still use is just SQLite, because I can move it quickly between my laptop and on the deployment server. The Django is quick to get up and running. It prevents agile changes due to the MVC model. There's quick fixes, though these shouldn't be permanent in the template. And I encourage people to use the Django for web app projects that you don't think you can undertake. So some quick thoughts on DevOps. There's this culture called DevOps where, and it mostly appears with web startup companies, is that because they're small teams, people who are in development also have to be familiar with operations. So people have to consider and understand the whole stack, as I mentioned, development and operations. So you're undergoing continuous deployment using a lean startup methodology, and decentralized IT tends to be, I come from decentralized IT, so decentralized IT is leaner, more amenable to DevOps. We're smaller units, we need to be more agile, so we have to do these things, all these things. So, and frameworks like the Django enable agile development and deployment. So the Django resources are djangoproject.com. Several books on Django is available. A good resource is the Pi conferences and the open source conference by O'Reilly. So future developments, things we're looking at, because Carleton just is completed their identity management system, my Carleton 1. So up until now, I've created all the accounts for all these users. So for the institutional users, now that we have rolled it out to all faculties now, all the faculty, I'd like to integrate that with my Carleton 1. One of the things we'd like to look at is have the external referee assessments upload their either upload their submissions as a PDF or just do an electronic submission. And provide administrative interfaces to the administrators managing the faculty and tenure and promotion processes. So with the admin interface, I could actually break that up into parts and allocate different objects that the administrators can manage. So for example, if they need to add a referee, they would have the opportunity to do that. So my challenge here is that the different technical levels of the administrators, and so this is something that I'll have to think seriously about. So the other things I'd like to do is at our ORP, our institutional research is now looking at being able to auto-generate the teaching evaluations. So if we can do that, then I'd like to be able to just pull those and just pipe it into the system rather than having intervention by any of the administrators or the actual candidates. And so if our HR systems ever can figure out exactly who's eligible for tenure and promotions, then we can get the data from there to drive and pre-populate all the candidates into the system. So for anyone familiar with Django, I just thought Django is quite present here at the conference. So when we did the crowdsourcing, it was a Django app. When we did the call for proposals, it was a Django app. When we did the crowd voting, it was a Django app. When we did the program review, it was a Django app. When we did the presentation submission, and some of us still have to do that, is a Django app. The Eventbrite, the online registration, is all built on the Django. And the content management system that's used to drive the conference app is also based on the Django. So any questions?
Can you talk a little bit about deploying Django?
Pardon?
Can you talk a bit about deploying Django?
My deployment is just using the WSGI. And so it's just running on an Apache server. So if you actually need to skip, there's a lot of configuration that you can actually do with WSGI. But if you actually need to deploy large applications, then you have to look at using caching and other mechanisms to actually improve the performance. So
A lot. Since there are so
pardon, sorry.
Django supports?
Yes.
Is it also bilingual? Let's say a user wants to log in foreign language?
Oh no. Well, my app is not. The framework supports multi-language.
Right?
The framework supports multi-language, but my app is not.
Okay.
Because we're a unilingual university.
So yeah, we will have to build both interfaces.
That's right. So you have to create templates and okay.
can we it's total cost.
Just my time. Well, actually, the provost office actually contributed $6,000 towards a server for deploying, because previously I just absconded with whatever server I could find to deploy. So this year they actually contributed $6,000 for server to deploy.
Where the documents stored?
Pardon?
The documents, when they're submitted, where are they stored?
Oh, they're actually stored as files. So basically, they're just recorded as a. Let me just go here. So let's see here. Oh, sorry. So this is within. Oh, sorry. Yes. So these are actually the documents are stored actually as PDF files. I actually hashed the path because once I had to present the candidates with actually their view, I didn't want other candidates to actually try to guess where the other candidates' file paths were. So I hashed them. So it's so they're just stored as straight PDF files. Any other questions? Yes, but because I'm just using an SQLite database, as I'm developing, it's not something I want to do while I'm developing at the same time. So.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. Seems to act. Thank you.